What the fuck? Hello collectors and welcome to my quick review of the MonsterArts Godzilla 2014 Spitfire version. This is the third 2014 Godzilla release from Bandai, so is the third time the charm. As a Bandai Premium Web Shop exclusive, once this guy sells out, he's going to be much more difficult to get and more expensive. So let's take a look to see whether or not it's worth adding into your collection, and if this is the definitive MonsterArts Godzilla 2014. Getting to the sculpt, this is the same thing I've covered 2 times so far. So I'll sum it up. Inaccurate to the movie design, but Sakai did a great job. Now, as for the paint, it's different from the first release of G14. And there are some cleaner paint apps, too. First, let's talk about what's radically different, the dorsal plates here. Where there is that atomic glow, the piece of plastic was casted in translucent blue plastic. And as you can see, there's a slight bit of paint added into that. It looks wonderful on display, and it's a nature with Tamashi not getting the 2014 design correct, because the glow isn't accurate. However, what they did is badass, and it extends to the tail too. Just look how it reflects the light, because I have Godzilla in this unique pose where you can see some in shade and some reflecting the light. It's so neat. Also, take a look here how it looks with a light source behind it. Nice and translucent, it captures the light beautifully. Now, the rest of this section will be a paint comparison with the original because this figure has less paint splotching than the original. However, starting with the head, you can clearly see they didn't fix the derp eyes or the sloppy paint on the mouth completely. It's kind of hit or miss because some got perfect ones, or so they claim, but mine is clearly not. However, what is very clear by this picture, regardless of what anyone has to say, is that the head on the Spitfire version is definitely cleaned up in comparison to the original. However, on its own, it's still not perfect. Here's a dedicated look at the torso area where, again, you can see the Spitfire version on the left is cleaned up a little bit. Also, you'll notice that the original 2014 has more of a matte paint scheme to it as opposed to the Spitfire version, which is noticeably glossier. Here's a look around Godzilla's waist where you can once again see the differences, and because I just had to include a crotch shot of Godzilla 2014. You know me. Here is a side-by-side comparison of the two 2014 figures where you can definitely see the differences there, what with Spitfire having the blue on the back, whereas the original release has significantly more green paint on the side. Why? I don't know, but that's what they did. And last up for this section, the green paint on the underside of the tail on the Spitfire version on the left has better paint application in terms of actually seeing it and is glossier than the original release here on the right. And I'd also like to take this time to show you proof that Spitfire's parts are indeed casted in translucent blue plastic. Now moving on to the articulation, there are some slight changes to this Godzilla from the first two 2014 figures. What are they? Let's find out. First and foremost, the jaw. On a ball joint, you know what to expect by this point out of the line. Get a little bit of movement there. La 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 la. The tongue, it can sort of move. You have to use something really small, though, in order to get any sort of noticeable range of movement out of there. You can see there, I used Godzilla's finger to move the tongue around. So, yeah, I mean, it can move, but it's not really worth it. And the head is attached to the neck on a ball joint. Spin Godzilla's head around. Like so. Pretty fun. And then the neck itself has a few ball joints, so you can get Godzilla to look around left and right. That's about the extent of the range of movement. And you get him to look down too. About that far. Pretty neat. Moving on down from there, we have the shoulders, which are on ball joints. They're pretty stiff on mine, but that doesn't mean you're unable to move them or you lose any sort of range of movement. It's just a little bit harder to move them, and you got to put a little bit more effort into that to move them. So moving on down to the elbows, we have a ball joint in the bicep and a ball joint in the forearm, and we have a hinge in the actual elbow itself, so this way you can spin Godzilla's arm around at the elbow, like so, and you get a hinge movement on there. So that's pretty neat. Moving on down to the wrists, again, we have a ball hinge combo system moving here, so this way you can get some swivel action out of the hands, and you can sort of get Godzilla's wrist to flick like that. which is pretty neat, you know, standard. So if you want to get Godzilla in sort of a grappling pose like this, grrr, you can do that, no problem. Moving on to the torso for articulation, where the ab crunch would be, we have a ball joint, and realistically speaking, the only thing you're going to be able to do is get Godzilla to lean forward with this joint here. You can sort of get him to twist side to side like so. I'll show you from the front, but you're not getting too much out of this joint in specific. Now, again, this is something that I have to bring up because there are people who love to complain about gaps. When you move this joint forward, this little hidden dorsal plate comes out to block the gap between these two dorsal plates, so it sort of helps with that. Moving on down to the waist, we have a ball joint here, which really adds to the fun in terms of moving Godzilla around at the torso. Because if you really want to, and you push it, it's totally fine. I just have the thigh in the way there. You can spin Godzilla's torso around at the waist all the way. So that's pretty cool. And that is actually a pretty sweet pose for Godzilla. So when you factor in this whole system of ball joints, you can really get Godzilla into some intimidating poses. Kind of like that. That's pretty cool. Moving on down, we have the hips. Ball joints. So, you can see them spinning around. Like so. You can get a pretty decent range of movement out of them. Now, in the promotional pictures for this one, and you'll notice that I brought this up in my first 2014 MonsterArts review, the thighs, right here at the hips, they're sculpted in a way that they sort of clash together. And you even saw me demonstrating that the thighs here at the hips have a little bit too much plastic to them because it interferes with the articulation up here. Anyway, about the promotional pictures for this Spitfire version. It showed that you can put the legs closer together. And is that true on the final product? Well, kinda. Unfortunately, as you can see, Godzilla is sort of at an angle. He's sort of leaning this way. So, is it true? Well, take it with a grain of salt. But if you sort of line up Godzilla's other joints, you can get him to sort of stand up straight. Cool. Moving on down from there, we have the knee joints, which are identical to the elbows in that you have a ball joint here at the end of the thigh and a ball joint here at the upper portion of the shin calf area. So this way you can bend Godzilla's knee. You can hear the hinge squeaking around there, and you can swivel the joints around. Moving on down, in the center of the lower portion of the leg here, there is a ball joint, which aids the ankle joint, which is also a ball joint, so this way you can get Godzilla to really spread his legs out, and you can get a sweet ankle rocker movement out of them. So this way, if you really want to, you can have a sumo Godzilla. Hoo-ha. Now, this is the main improvement over the original 2014 Godzilla. Notice the tail. It's not drooping down like in my other review. It's actually holding itself up. Huh, that's pretty sweet. That's really sweet, because that's something that this Godzilla should be able to do. And I'll go ahead and put him in that sumo-like pose again. Hopefully he'll be able to balance. And just like that, the tail is still holding itself up in the air. This should have been done on the first MonsterArts release. So I gotta say, Bandai, shame on you for not getting it right the first time. But here, good job on getting it done. Moving right along to accessories, we don't get a whole lot of them with Spitfire version, but what we do get is pretty cool, as seen here. We get this Stage Act 4 base with this Godzilla logo on it, with this splatter. Kind of looks like blood, if you're edgy. And all the copyright information here on the bottom, which is pretty neat. And we get a support arm for this awesome beam effect to use with the Spitfire version of Godzilla, or with any of the other Godzillas you have in your collection, because it's totally interchangeable. And to pop this on the arm, there's a little hole here at the base, where all you do is you plug that onto the peg, and there you go. You can use it with Godzilla. And to set it up, it's really easy, because you have this peg here on the bottom of the support arm, that all you do is you plug into the hole of the base, and you line it up with Godzilla's mouth, because the support arm is articulated, and there you go. Now Godzilla is spitting fire. Now, something that I did not make mention of before is that on this base, you'll see if you flip it over, there are these pegs here. And if you really want to, you can pop these pegs out, so this way you can put more support arms in the base. And last but certainly not least is a burned Muto Head, which is really cool. The sculpting details are very nice. The only issue is that it's super, super, super glossy, and when you have it on the shelf with your other MonsterArts, it may stand out. This probably won't be an issue for most, but hey, for some of you out there, this may be a big detriment to the figure overall. Now, something of note, you may have seen the Muto Head on its own. Looking at it in hand, it looks like the head is actually glued to this extra hand you use to attach to the wrist of the different 2014 MonsterArts. So be careful with that, because I'm playing around with it here and it's not coming off easy, and considering it looks like there's glue, I don't want to risk damaging the figure. So if you want to do it, best of luck to you, but I'm not going to do that for my review. And to use the Muto Head effectively, all you have to do on any of your 2014 MonsterArts Godzillas, doesn't necessarily have to be this one, it can be the junky original version, or it can be the poster version if for some reason you decided to pick that up. And all you have to do is grab the right hand, be nice and gentle, and just pop the hand off. Don't force it. If for some reason you can't pop the hand off, take a hairdryer to it, or put it under hot water. Then you take the hand with the little socket there, gently work it onto the wrist. Again, if it doesn't work for you, get a hairdryer. Now, usually there's a pop associated with it, so this way you know it's secured firmly, but there you go. Godzilla is now holding the Muto Head. And when it comes to sizing, there haven't really been any changes, as you'll see here when he's displayed alongside some of NECA's Pacific Rim figures, Godzilla figures, some SH MonsterArts, and finally, as you can see here clearly, alongside the other 2014 MonsterArts. So like you would expect, no change in size. So, buy him now, skip him, or wait for a sale. This is a much needed improvement over the first release, and for all intents and purposes, I would say this figure replaces the original release. Better joints for the tail, better paint apps, and we get accessories. The head paint, it's still a drawback, as it's still a crapshoot from figure to figure, but it's much better than the first release. Those who are on the fence because it's another repaint in the SH MonsterArts line, well, I was there on the fence too. If you have the first release, wait until you find this one for a deal, like I did, so this way it really doesn't hurt your wallet. However, if you don't have a MonsterArts 2014 Godzilla yet, this is the one to get. Well, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching, and be sure to give it a thumbs up, and be sure to subscribe if you haven't. If you'd like to view some of my other videos, go ahead and click on the pictures in this video, and you'll be taken right to them. I've hand-selected them just for you. Be sure to check the description for both more information and some links to help me out, including a link to my Patreon. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.